Watch closely. The woman running across this Florida gas station isn't just on fire. She's a mother, burning alive in front of her own reflection. But what you don't know is that her real pain wouldn't come until years later. Not from the fire, but from a bullet. Her son was gunned down before justice could catch its breath. This is the haunting story of Naomi Breton and the family that was torn apart by two monsters. One she escaped, one she never saw coming. If you're into true stories that leave a mark, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and stay with us till the end. Because this story, it doesn't let go. It was supposed to be a simple drop-off. Just after 11 p.m., on a humid Florida night in July, Naomi Breton pulled into a gas station in Boynton Beach. The bright lights overhead buzzed against the stillness of the late hour. Surveillance cameras blinked quietly in the background, watching, but powerless. Naomi, a 34-year-old mother of three, was expecting her ex-boyfriend, Roosevelt Messier, to meet her with their 4-year-old son. They had arranged a custody exchange. Nothing more, nothing less. It had happened before. But this time, he didn't bring their child. Instead, he brought a gas can. Naomi didn't see it coming. She barely had time to register what was happening. In a matter of seconds, Roosevelt doused her in gasoline, his face void of emotion, as if possessed. The scent hit her first. That sharp, dizzying smell that makes your throat close. Then panic. Then fire. He lit a match. And in one horrifying breath, Naomi became a torch. Flames leapt from her skin, dancing across her hair, her arms, her back. Her screams tore through the night like a siren no one wanted to hear. But this wasn't just an arson, it was a hunt. As Naomi ran, burning, Roosevelt chased her, holding a large knife in his hand. And it was all caught on tape. "We have an emergency. This guy has a knife. There's fire. Fire!" Inside the convenience store, chaos exploded. Naomi burst through the doors, her skin already blistering, her voice ragged. The clerk froze. Customers screamed. But she couldn't stop. She had to get away. She had to live. For her children. But Roosevelt didn't stop. He charged into the store, grabbed her, and dragged her back outside. And then, he lit her up again. This time, it was worse. Her screams were gut-wrenching. The kind of scream that burns itself into memory. "He set me on fire. Hurry. Please hurry. I'm burning. He has a knife, please." As she struggled to smother the flames, tearing her shirt off to stop the fire from eating her alive, she collapsed back inside the store, where she finally found a phone and dialed 911 herself. You could hear it in her voice. The agony. The disbelief. The terror. "Please, he set me on fire. I'm burning, I'm burning." When Boynton Beach police officer Patrick Monty arrived, the scene was pure horror. Naomi lay half-naked on the floor, her upper body completely burned. Her skin was blackened and hanging. Her hair was singed. And yet, she was alive. Barely. Monty would later say. He had a plan. He lured her there. This wasn't a fight. This was a setup to kill her. Roosevelt Messier fled the scene, but he wouldn't get far. He was arrested shortly after, cold and expressionless. During questioning, not once did he ask about Naomi. Not even a glance of remorse. "So what was your plan?" the officer asked. "Were you hoping she would die?" Roosevelt just shrugged. The kid already suffering. Too much problem. It was chilling. Naomi suffered second and third-degree burns across her face, chest, and arms. Her recovery was brutal. Doctors had to soak her in scalding water to clean the wounds. Her skin had to be scrubbed with metal brushes. She had to relearn how to live with the pain, and with the memory. "I remember smelling my own skin burn. I remember it hitting me. He really wanted me to die." But Naomi didn't die. She lived. She fought. She clawed her way back to life. For her kids. She would become a symbol of survival in Florida. A mother who refused to let evil win. And she held her family tighter than ever. Especially her eldest son, Xavier. What Naomi didn't know, what no one could have predicted, was that the most devastating loss of her life was still waiting. And this time, there would be no warning. No cameras. No justice. Just silence. And a gunshot. After the fire, Naomi's world slowed to a crawl. Everything hurt. Not just her body, but her trust, her spirit, her belief that the worst was behind her. But one person never let her fall completely. Xavier, her firstborn, her rock. Xavier Breton was only 20, but after the attack, he became more than just a son. He became her caregiver, her teammate, her protector. While she healed, Xavier quietly picked up the pieces. He made sure the chores were done. He made sure his younger brothers were picked up from school. Baths were done. Food was ready. He just stepped up. There's a kind of strength that doesn't need words. And Xavier had it. He was funny, silly, always cracking jokes, always smiling. To the outside world, they were just a close-knit family. But inside that house was the heart of a young man who had seen his mother burn, and decided that from that day on, he'd never let anyone hurt her again. February 13th, 2019. The night before Valentine's Day. Naomi was home, resting after a long shift at work. She'd fallen asleep, exhausted. Then she heard a voice. "Hey, Ma. I just came from getting a haircut. Just chilling out." Xavier had stopped by the house to say hi. He didn't plan to stay long, just a quick visit before heading to meet some friends in West Palm Beach. Naomi barely remembered him walking through the door. He left around 8 p.m. She would never see him alive again. Sometime after 10 p.m., Naomi's younger son, Giovanni, came bursting into her room. "Mama! Mama! Xavier's been shot." She jumped up. The words didn't feel real. "What do you mean, shot? Where is he?" The next moments were a blur. Racing out the door. Praying it was a mistake. But when she got to the scene, a detective pulled her aside. "I'm sorry. Your son didn't make it." Naomi collapsed. She screamed. She cried. She begged the universe to rewind. But it didn't. The same woman who had once run through flames now stood frozen in the cold wind of a senseless murder. Her Xavier was gone. The crime scene was quiet, confusing. Xavier had been shot, apparently while walking with friends. Witnesses said they heard a single gunshot, saw Xavier run, then collapse in a narrow path. Why? Who? No one seemed to know. His friends were shaken. His family was shattered. And the police had no immediate answers. Naomi felt helpless. Again. But if the fire hadn't stopped her, grief wouldn't either. I became a full-fledged detective. I asked questions. I talked to anyone who had been near the scene. I wasn't going to stop. Even a local reporter, Olivia Hitchcock, joined Naomi's push for answers. She was relentless. And honestly, I don't blame her. Who wouldn't be, after surviving what she had already been through? Every day, Naomi visited Xavier's grave. Every night, she wore a necklace containing his ashes, etched with the words, "Forever loved." She begged the community for help. "I don't care who you are. Just write something down. An address. A name. Anything. Help me find who did this to my son." And then, finally, in January of 2021, 2 years later, Naomi got a call from the detective. "I need to see you. I'm on my way." She knew what that meant. Her body started shaking. She wasn't ready. But the words came anyway. 2 men had been indicted by a grand jury. Kevin Davis, Vicente Ortiz. The charge: first-degree murder with a firearm. The details were still murky. Investigators kept the case close to the chest. But for Naomi, the names didn't bring peace, just more pain. It's been years, and we still haven't been to court. I still don't know why. Why my son? What did he do? Xavier wasn't involved in gangs. He had no criminal record. He was a big brother, a good son. And now, he was gone. Naomi visits the place where he died often. It's quiet. Too quiet. If surviving an attempted murder was the first nightmare, losing Xavier became the second. But what followed was something even more cruel than both. Silence. For many families, an arrest feels like closure. For Naomi Breton, it felt like another waiting room. Yes, Kevin Davis and Vicente Ortiz had been indicted. But years passed with no court date. No trial. No answers. It's been 6 years since my son was murdered. We still haven't seen a courtroom. Not once. Every time Naomi looked at Xavier's photos, his wide smile, his boyish energy frozen in time, it felt like the justice system had hit pause. The woman who once ran for her life engulfed in fire now found herself trapped in another kind of heat. Bureaucracy, delays, unanswered calls, postponed hearings. Naomi's frustration was shared by many families of victims, especially in gun violence cases. The wheels of justice grind slowly when the evidence is thin, or when cases get backlogged. But this wasn't just a file. This was her child. Every delay felt like a slap. Like Xavier's life didn't matter. She emailed prosecutors, left voicemails, attended every hearing notice, even if it got canceled. Her determination didn't fade. But the lack of answers took a toll on her health, on her heart, on her remaining children. Nathaniel, he was supposed to be in the car that night. He never talks about it. But I see it in his eyes. He carries that trauma too. Every year, Naomi marks Xavier's birthday with a small ritual. She visits the site where he died. She plays his favorite songs. She talks to him like he's still here. Happy birthday, baby. We love you. And every time she does, the same questions come rushing back. Why him? What really happened that night? Was it random or planned? She holds the necklace tighter. Inside it, a pinch of Xavier's ashes. I used to wear it every day. Now I bring it with me for good luck. It's the last piece of him I have. The night he died, Naomi hadn't seen Xavier leave the house. She was half asleep when he left after that haircut. But at 11:45 p.m., she saw a message on her phone. Hey Ma, I saw that you came to do everything that you needed. Be safe. I love you. She replied. I love you too. That was the last message they ever shared. The bond between Naomi and Xavier had been forged in fire, literally. He stood by her side when her skin peeled. He made her laugh when she couldn't lift her arms. He stepped in as a second parent when she was too weak to cook. I owe him everything. I survived for him. And when I finally felt strong enough to live again, he was taken from me. There's something profoundly cruel about fate sometimes. Some victims die once. Naomi died twice. Once in fire, and once in grief. But she didn't let either kill her. She kept living. For her sons. For herself. And for Xavier. Some people break after trauma. Others rebuild, stronger, louder, and determined to be the voice no one gave them. Naomi Breton didn't ask to become a symbol. But pain gave her a platform. And she made sure it echoed. After the fire, Naomi would have disappeared into shame, fear, and disfigurement. Instead, she went public. She shared her story on television, at support groups, and domestic violence awareness events. He tried to burn me alive. But I lived. I am not a victim. I'm a survivor. Her face bore the scars. Her voice carried the strength. She talked about the hospital baths, where nurses scrubbed raw skin with metal brushes. She talked about Xavier, the boy who wiped her tears while hiding his own. And she talked about fear, that it could happen again to someone else, unless the world started listening. Naomi's story became a case study in how quickly a relationship can turn deadly. Roosevelt Messier had no regard for Naomi's life. He attacked her in public, with bystanders watching. It was premeditated, deliberate, and it exposed a painful truth. Some people don't stop until they kill you. If I hadn't run, if I hadn't fought, my kids would be orphans. She now works with local organizations, sharing her story in hopes that other women will recognize the signs earlier than she did. Because Roosevelt didn't snap, he planned. He lured her there. He brought gasoline instead of a child. He chased her with a knife. And even after being sentenced to life in prison for attempted first-degree murder, he never once apologized. He said the kid was already suffering. As if that justified killing me. Naomi wasn't just a mother. She became a fighter for every mother who didn't make it. But Naomi's greatest fight didn't involve her own body. It was for Xavier. And this time, it wasn't just about one violent man. It was about a system that moved too slow to matter. I had to call every week, chase down case updates, beg for details. And she wasn't alone. In black communities across Florida, and across the country, families like Naomi's often face longer wait times for homicide investigations and court proceedings. A combination of under-resourced departments, witness fear, and systemic neglect leaves mothers like Naomi stuck in purgatory. Waiting, suffering, pleading. Xavier's friends didn't want to talk. They were scared. I don't blame them. But it meant more silence. And so Naomi became the voice again. For her son. For the truth. For any mother who never got to say goodbye. Xavier wasn't just the kid who got shot. He was a brother who played video games with his younger siblings. A teen who made terrible jokes at the dinner table. A young man who helped raise a family when his mom couldn't lift her arms. He never asked for recognition. He just gave. When I came home from the hospital, Xavier had organized the kitchen, cleaned the bathrooms, helped me dress. He saw things no child should ever have to see. But he never made me feel weak. And that's why his death still haunts her. Not just because he's gone, but because he never got the life he deserved. When Naomi sat in that courtroom for the first time, her hands trembled. Not from fear, but from years of carrying a weight no mother should ever have to bear. In January 2021, a grand jury officially indicted Kevin Davis and Vicente Ortiz for first-degree murder with a firearm in the death of Xavier Breton. 2 years of silence. Broken. But justice, Naomi quickly learned, doesn't come wrapped in closure. It drips slowly, like a leaking faucet. One court date at a time. The hearings were sparse. Details about the suspects were limited. Witnesses were hesitant. No motive had been officially released to the public. You think once they're charged, it gets easier. But it doesn't. The questions don't stop. The ache doesn't stop. You just become familiar with the pain. Still, the indictment meant something. It meant Xavier's name wasn't forgotten. It meant his mother's relentless pursuit had stirred something in the justice system. Naomi remembers that day outside the gas station when the officer looked her in the eye and said, "I promise you, we will not rest until your son's killer is under the ground." And now, here she was, sitting just feet away from the 2 men accused of taking her boy. She didn't see monsters. She saw men. But what chilled her was that neither one of them looked remorseful. They didn't glance her way. Didn't flinch when Xavier's name was read out loud. They took my baby, and it didn't even crack their faces. As of now, Naomi and her family still wait for a full trial to begin. The delays keep coming. Procedural issues, evidence processing, court backlogs. But Naomi shows up every time. She wears Xavier's ashes around her neck. She takes notes. She locks eyes with the men accused of destroying her world. This isn't just about punishment. It's about making sure Xavier is never just a number. He was a person. He mattered. The legal process may be slow, but Naomi isn't going anywhere. Some nights, Naomi lies awake staring at the ceiling. She hears Xavier's voice. His laugh. The slam of the door when he'd come home late. The whispered, "Love you," he sent just hours before he died. I play that message in my head sometimes. Over and over. I'm just thankful I got to say it back. There's no healing from this kind of pain. But there is endurance. And Naomi has learned to endure like no one else. I survived fire. I survived loss. I'm still here. And I'll be here every day until justice comes walking through that courtroom door. Today, Naomi continues to speak at domestic violence events, juvenile programs, and victim advocacy seminars. Her scars are visible, but they no longer define her. They tell a story. And behind every talk, every speech, every tear, is the voice of a son who once held her hand through pain. I fight because he would have fought for me. He already did. She holds her necklace. The charm with Xavier's ashes. He's still here. Every step I take, he's with me. Some wounds don't close. They just learn how to live beside you. Naomi often goes back to the last message she received from Xavier. It was quiet, simple, full of love. Hey Ma, I saw that you came to do everything you needed. Be safe. I love you. I love you too, she replied. Hours later, he was gone. That message has become a kind of lullaby for Naomi. A soft whisper in the chaos. A reminder that even in the darkest moments, Xavier left her with love. Not hate. Not violence. Just love. Naomi Breton was never supposed to survive. Roosevelt Messier made sure of that. He brought gasoline. He brought a knife. He brought rage. He wanted her to vanish, in fire and silence. But she didn't. She ran. She screamed. She endured. And when she came back, scorched and scarred, she raised her head, and raised her children. And when they took Xavier, she stood again. You don't get to take my son and bury my voice with him. Not now. Not ever. Let the record show. Xavier was 20 years old. He had a goofy laugh. He helped his brothers with homework. He cared for a mother who couldn't dress herself after a fire. He loved music. He loved life. He was not a statistic. He was a hero in silence, long before anyone knew. And when he died, he didn't leave emptiness behind. He left echoes, memory, purpose. Naomi fights because of him. This case isn't just about justice. It's about all the quiet victims. The women who sense something's wrong but don't know where to go. The kids who witness violence and never tell a soul. The mothers who lose everything and still rise. Naomi's story is a warning, but it's also a rally cry. If someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Don't wait until you're on fire. 6 years have passed. Still no trial date. Still no final judgment for the 2 men who took Xavier's life. But Naomi keeps showing up, with his ashes close to her heart and his name on her lips. Even if it takes a lifetime, I'll be there. Because my son was worth it. This story deserves to be shared, not just for Naomi, not just for Xavier, but for every family fighting in silence. If you were moved by this story, please hit the like button. Share this video. And most importantly, subscribe to this channel for more real stories that need to be heard. Because silence protects no one, but awareness might save someone. This has been the story of Naomi Breton and Xavier. A woman who survived fire, and a son who gave her the strength to live again.